today we wanted to take some time to do kind of a deep dive into Lumu Insights, show you what you can expect to see and how you really can make the most of your Insights account. So when you first access the portal, and you can do this, through our website, you can actually just sign in through here. I'm currently already signed in. But the first thing that you're going to see associated with your account is going to be that overview page. So in that overview page, it really just kind of gives you a high level understanding of what's happening across your network and really what Lumu is seeing for the most part when it comes to incidents, when it comes to unusual activity. We're seeing, the open incidents, the number of endpoints across your organization that are affected, the different labels, and we'll get into what that means in a little bit, but you're going to just see really the distribution of all the activity that we're seeing and the malicious activity across your organization. And then down here, it just gives you a high level overview of what you have set up with us in terms of, metadata collectors. So all the gateways, virtual appliances, agents that you may have in use for that as well as custom collectors, maybe via API and the spam box that's set up. So you're just going to see a high level overview, again, of your account, of what's going on. But you can get into more detail about these incidents and about all of the malicious activity that we're seeing by accessing the incidents tab. So this is really a good way to manage those incidents day to day, to see the number of open incidents, which means that the ones that have potentially not been addressed yet. You can see the different labels affected. You can see the distribution of incidents across your organization and the threat type that for the most part is where you're seeing most of that adversarial or malicious activity coming from. So in this case, as you can see here, it's all color coordinated. So you can see that the majority of malicious activity is associated with malware in this case. And then below that, you can see all of the open incidents and what they're associated with. You can actually filter by the type of incident, so by the threat type itself. You can filter also by labels, which are basically ways that you can organize information in the portal. So it's a really good way to label certain activity associated with metadata sources. And, on the topic of labels, I think it's a good idea to just talk a little bit about how those are set up and what you can expect to see with those labels. Again, it's a really good way to organize and prioritize what you're seeing in that portal environment on a daily basis. So it's a really good way to get an understanding of that. So it's pretty simple to do in terms of setting the label up. You simply click on add there. You give it a name, a business relevance, so whether it's low, medium, high priority for you, and then a description of what you're expecting to see with this particular label. And then you create the label. And basically, once it's created, you can associate it with certain data collectors, certain gateways, virtual appliances. So, generally speaking, what we see a lot of is people will create labels for maybe geographic locations, or they'll create it maybe for certain departments across their organization, or maybe even like so specific in terms of like a certain virtual appliance that's set up for that metadata collection. So you can get very granular in the way that you create labels and in the way that you associate that traffic. So again, that you're able to prioritize whether it's for the entire network, or you want to have certain devices or certain metadata collectors that you want associated with that label. So just give you an example. This one, for example, is set up for Canada, so the traffic coming from Canada. As you can see here, it has the associated elements when you select the label. And labels, again, they're assigned through the collectors. So when you create a new collector, you associate it with a label in there. But basically, once that's done, you can go to the label itself and see everything that's associated with it. In this example, there's not any gateways, but there are 2 virtual appliances set up for it. So any of the metadata that we see from those virtual appliances are going to be labeled with this Canada label that was created. And if you click on the arrow here, you can also see some additional information about the label and about the traffic that we're seeing from that particular virtual appliance. So again, it's a pretty good way to manage that information, especially when you're dealing with those incidents every day and you're trying to prioritize, you're trying to do so in an efficient way. It's a really good way to get that done. And then all labels, again, they can be managed here and associated with different elements to filter that out. Now, next thing I wanted to do is sort of walk you through the activity tab. So this this is where you're going to see, it's the same incidents that we saw in the incidents tab, but showing it to you in a different way, showing it to you in terms of, all the traffic that we're seeing and the activity that we're seeing. And this is where you can also sort of customize the date range that you want to look at. So in this example, we'll go back 30 days. And that's gonna basically change the data that you see below. So it's gonna show you data for the last 30 days, and activity for the last 30 days, that is. So you're gonna see all of the traffic that's been seen, anything associated with malware, phishing, command and control, network scanning, all those types of, all that type of malicious activity that we're seeing is gonna be shown here. And that's for the last 30 days when you set those parameters. So as you can see, in the last 30 days, we've seen a bit of unusual activity associated with malware. One of those instances being on May 13th. And the other one, May 20th, looks like there was something unusual going on too. So those are two areas that 2 days that you're gonna maybe wanna pay a little bit closer attention to. So you can filter by the IOC. So if you happen to know the domain that you're looking for, you can do that. And then you can also filter by the type of, like by the attack type or the technique used. So you can look for malware, command and control. You can filter this down in a way that makes sense for you. Now I wanted to show you a particular incident that is pretty interesting. It's actually associated with an IOC that is related to that Emotet ransomware precursor. So this one is really interesting. We were seeing, this is the IOC, this is the domain there, that is the detail of the threat. So it's the malware family, the Emotet, that we've been seeing a lot of activity from. And then this is the last, the last point of contact with that malicious IOC, and then the number of contacts that we saw. So if we select the incident, you can see a bit more information about it. You can see how frequently your organization was in contact with this IOC and what happened, which endpoints. So now if we click on compromised context here, that's going to give you a lot more detail. So again, IOC, the last time your organization was in contact with that IOC, different threat triggers and related files, which are very useful, and we'll see that below, but related files are very useful for taking action and knowing exactly which files or the hashes of those files to look for, either at the device level or across your network. You're just depending on how your organization is structured. But here on the compromise radar, you can see how often your organization or an asset in your organization was in contact with that malicious infrastructure. So as we can see here, 2 endpoints were affected. Those 2 endpoints being this IP here, and then the Bogota office label, it seems, or the development label. Well, both are associated with the development label, and then they were coming from these 2 endpoints that fall under that sub-label. So you can see all of the timestamps, how frequently it was happening. Seems like it was really just happening on Friday, on that May 13th. So that's when we were seeing the most of that activity. And then you can look here to see sort of the time more or less when this was taking place for the most part. So as you can see, it was happening on a regular basis. Looks like every minute or so they were contacting these endpoints in that organization. So just interesting to see the details of the endpoints. So of course you can address it with that particular device. So there's that asset level visibility to take action. And then the attack distribution, again, it's just another way of looking at it. You see that the timestamp there, more or less when this was happening. And then you can see that this was affecting that development label, and it was affecting 2 assets there. Now under context, you get a lot more information as well. So you have the threat triggers, which is the IOC itself that was in contact, and then the description of what you're seeing there. So this is again related to Emotet. And then as I was talking about, you can get these files, you can download that information to take action, to block, or you can go to that device level and take care of it like that, as well as you see the asset level visibility there. So you're really able to take action with that. Here we have related resources that we provide. So there are different articles that talk about this attack type so that you can really drill down and get an understanding for what's going on. So we include as much information as much useful information as we can there. And then since this is associated with malware, we also have our malware incident response playbook. So this is something that really helps a lot of organizations sort of get an understanding of how malware moves, and then different examples about how to remediate it. So most of our incidents come with these attack playbooks, depending on the attack type and on what we're seeing, but it gives you a good kind of detailed analysis and strategy in terms of a response plan to taking action against these threats. So that is all included there. And the other cool thing about it is the attack matrix. So the MITRE attack matrix gives you an understanding really of the technique used, and gives you, again, just kind of an understanding of how to properly respond to these threats depending on the technique that was used. So it gives you a lot of information. I like to say kind of each incident comes with its own unique attack response playbook, and it gives you a lot of detail and really helps you respond in a targeted way. So that's just kind of the incident in detail. I wanted to show you another one that I found to be quite interesting. So again, you see that spike in activity the last 30 days. When you want to kind of narrow down your investigation efforts, you like to look at where there tends to be a little more activity. So the other one, and this was an interesting one, was on May 20th. This is one that also was associated with a ransomware precursor. And it's one that we've been hearing a lot about lately. It's the Conti ransomware group. So this incident, again, as you can see, this is the adversarial, the domain, the threat detail about how it's related to this Conti ransomware example, when that contact was last made, and then the number of contacts. So it's not too much contact, but we can see that asset level visibility with this ransomware precursor. And it really, it's able to tell you before this turns into something else. So it's good to be on the lookout for these kind of things. So again, this is the malicious IOC, the last time your organization was in contact with that IOC. And then that compromised radar showing you when that contact took place. In this case, it affected one endpoint. So it was one particular user that was affected by it, in that operations label. And so you can see how this was potentially spread via email, it seems, just in terms of the way that this malware tends to move. And we have the details of the emails that were sent between different users in the organization. So it came from this particular endpoint. With that asset level visibility, you can really narrow down your investigation efforts. Here under context, again, you see those threat triggers, you see the different information about what's happening here, those related files, so that you can take action appropriately now that you know where it was coming from and who it potentially spread to through the emails that we saw in the previous view. So you could take action that way. And then the related resources, again, it's a really good way to contextualize and give you an idea around this particular malicious incident. So for example, you have different external articles about this Conti ransomware group. And the first one we see here is CISA, which is the Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency. So they give you an overview of this ransomware precursor, what's happening. Again, we're hearing a lot about Conti lately, so it's really no surprise that we're seeing it pop up related to different malware incidents. And we include as many, industry articles as we can here to help you, have a more targeted response and understand where the threat is coming from. And again, you have that malware incident response playbook. So with all this information, you can really narrow down your response efforts to respond to exactly what's happening as a result of this malicious contact. And then again, the MITRE attack matrix, it varies depending on the type of attack that we're seeing, but we include all of that information here for you so that you can easily access the attack matrix here. And as you can see, this is the malicious URL in this case, or the IOC that's associated with this incident. And actually on the Conti website, on the CISA website where it talks about Conti, you can see that same IOC listed here in terms of malicious domains associated with Conti. So it just kind of can correlate what's happening and get a good understanding for that. So yeah, that's essentially what I wanted to show in terms of events and in terms of what you can expect to see. I'd like to show you one other example of a different type of event associated with another IOC here, and just again, depending on the type of event, this one is related to spam. So this is related to something malicious that looks like it was being sent via email across the organization. And so depending on the event, you're going to see different types of activity and how frequently it contacted or how it may be spread across the organization. You're going to be able to see that here. So this is the, malicious IOC. It's a testing IOC we use actually. So you can see how it was spreading across the organization, how frequently, the different endpoints were in touch with this, or how it was spreading. Again, you see the different emails in the spam box related to that as well. And then you have that asset level visibility. So you can really understand who was affected by this. And you can, again, narrow down your response efforts that way. But again, depending on the amount of contact in that event and depending on what was discovered, it's all reported here, and it's just going to look different depending on how it spread and who it affected. And then in terms of context, we have a spam incident response playbook as well. So again, another useful resource. In this case, this incident was related to spam, so you can change your response efforts according to that. The other thing that, whenever you're investigating an incident or, you have any questions, or you're not sure about something, we always have this this orange question mark here. So this really, this links you to all of the different, the documentation that we have, not only about using the portal itself, but about just different, different subjects here. So getting started, not only with the portal environment, but just setting up your account, setting up the different collectors, whether it's gateways, virtual appliances, agents, custom API collectors. That can all be done here in the portal. And we have a lot of really detailed guides about how to get started in doing that. So you can also sign up for Lumu Academy. And this helps give you like a really, really good understanding of how it works and really get in there with the product. So you can do that here as well. But we're also always available and here to help. So we have our support team. You can easily open a ticket with them if you have any questions about something or something doesn't quite make sense. It's a good idea to just kind of reach out to the team, and we're always happy to help and help you guys respond there. So that is Lumu Insights. It's just kind of a detailed overview. Again, we give you as much detail as possible in terms of that asset level visibility, so that you can have a very targeted response to these attacks. Now, the next level of Lumu, right, is automating those response efforts. And that's going to be through Lumu Defender. So Lumu Defender, that's the tier that has those out of the box integrations and automated response plans, so that you can automate what it is that you want to do with those particular incidents. And you can configure that here in the portal as well. But that's that's with Defender, and that you can look out for in our next training. Thank you, everybody.